All right, everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us for the 33rd annual The Hartford Virtual Ski Spectaculars Increasing the Mental Game session. My name is Bree Pogorski and I'm the Athlete Engagement Senior Coordinator with Move United, formerly Disabled Sports USA and Adaptive Sports USA. We would like to thank the Hartford for their longstanding commitment and support, allowing us to bring you this virtual opportunity. So before we get started, I just want to go over a couple housekeeping items. We're going to keep all attendees on mute currently to minimize distractions, but please feel free to turn on your video using the camera button or start video at the bottom of your screen. And these sessions will be recorded, so if you don't want your video to be shown or if you haven't signed your media release yet, please feel free to hide your video. It's not mandatory to be on. And you can sign your media release in the link found in the chat. We'll be sharing that shortly. Closed caption for this session is also enabled, and attendees are welcome to adjust the font size as they need. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll try to answer some at the end if we have time, but we will be monitoring them and can follow up with more information if we don't get to your question. Make sure to set your chat preferences to send to all panelists and attendees or everyone, just to make sure your messages get to the whole group. And the presenters are going to introduce themselves prior to beginning their presentations. So with that, let's just get started and jump right into it. I'm gonna let Audrey go ahead and start her presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and for participating in the Ski Spectacular event. I was lucky enough last year to participate as well, so I was very excited to be re-invited for another year. So as I mentioned, my name is Audrey Shaw, and I'm the Outreach Education Program Lead for True Sport, which is a grassroots initiative of the US Anti-Doping Agency. At True Sport, our mission is simple and bold: to change the culture of youth sport by providing powerful educational tools to equip young athletes with the resources to build life skills and core values for success on and off the field, or in this case, ski slope. I've been invited here today by Move United to have a conversation with you around increasing the mental game in sport, specifically as it relates to navigating and responding to performance anxiety. Learning to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. So let's start simple. Performance anxiety. What is it exactly? Well, the Oxford Dictionary describes it as, quote, extreme nervousness experienced before or during participation in an activity taking place in front of an audience. That, however, is a very clinical and neat definition. From my experience, performance anxiety is better described as the yucky, overwhelming, butterflies in the stomach, don't want to do this, please don't look at me, and why did I sign up for this? I'm not ready feeling you get when it seems like you have no control over what might happen. The good news is, experiencing performance anxiety doesn't mean that we'll be trapped in a pit of anxiety and stay there forever. There are actionable steps we can take to identify, address, and eventually alleviate some of the pressures we are feeling. Before we get too far ahead though, let's address what performance anxiety might look like. To do this, I want you to close your eyes. Imagine yourself just moments before a big race. You're getting your equipment ready, you're drinking your last couple sips of water, and you're scoping out who else is competing. What type of thoughts are you having? Are your palms sweating? Is your heart racing? Do you feel truly prepared? What happens if you fall halfway down the course? Will your coach be disappointed if you don't win? We tend to have these types of thoughts, plus so many different feelings when we enter into a new uncomfortable environment like races. I don't know about you, but if you weren't feeling anxious at the start of this conversation, even just thinking about the feelings and thoughts I have before a competition is enough to trigger some of the physiological responses to anxiety I typically experience. So now that we're here and have a better understanding of what performance anxiety is and how performance anxiety might look, at least in its simplest terms, how do we begin to address the feeling in a healthy and action-oriented way? Well, first, we fight. This acronym, developed by Dr. Kevin Chapman, who is a licensed clinical psychologist and true sport expert, is a great way of helping to determine what thoughts and feelings we're having, how we can start to redirect our thoughts and emotions so they're more productive and actionable, and how we can help someone else overcome the same obstacles we might be facing. It starts by focusing on what we can control right now. It's important to recognize that there's a lot of uncertainty that we will face in life and that it's normal to be anxious. But what can you do? What can you control? You can start by controlling your behavior, although sometimes easier said than done. Next, we need to try and identify what negative thoughts we might be having. While experiencing anxiety and having negative thoughts is normal, negative thoughts are also what feed anxiety and makes the uncertain even more uncomfortable. By identifying the thoughts that fuel our anxieties, we allow ourselves a space to start generating alternative thoughts. Alternative thoughts don't have to be all sunshine and rainbows, but they do need to help us be a little more flexible. Think to yourself, can I entertain different possibilities? Can I consider a more positive perspective on what being uncomfortable right now might mean later? Some of those alternative thoughts might include practicing what are called highly adaptive behaviors. These behaviors are the ones that we practice when we're helping others and feel really good about it. This might include things like volunteering our time, having a movie night with friends, virtually or otherwise, helping prepare a meal with our family. Really, any task that lifts those we love as well as our mood. To help us activate alternative thoughts, let's consider what sort of activities you can fall on to help remind you of what it means to feel good, to help organize your priorities. So at this point, what I would like everybody to do in the chat, if you're comfortable, is share what sorts of activities make you feel both good and bring joy to others. I'm going to give you guys a couple of moments to put those into the chat, and then we'll move on. Awesome. And while those are populating, we can start looking at the list you're generating because that allows us to move into the last part of our fight. And that is to help teach someone else to do the same thing. We're all in this thing called life together, and it's essential to teach other people the same healthy coping strategies we're working on right now. All right, so we've put up a good fight. What's next? Well, we practice some self-care and we practice mindfulness. So Dr. Amy Saltzman, who is a holistic physician and mindfulness coach, describes being mindful as simply being aware of what is happening here and now with kindness and curiosity so that we can choose our behaviors. If we can practice self-care habits that better enable us to choose positive and supportive behaviors, anxiety becomes just another one of those emotions we have the choice to fully engage with or dismiss. So practicing self-care includes things like prioritizing rest, making healthier food choices, drinking more water, focusing on conditioning, both in sport and of the mind, and developing a game day or high anxiety day routine, like making a packing list, having snacks, or developing a mental preparation habit, like listening to music or visualization. All of these small self-care practices can help develop a stronger mindset so we can better deal with the stresses of daily and competitive life. Self-care is not selfish, and it truly matters in our journey of finding lifelong mental wellness. So once again, we've compiled a list of things that we do that bring us great joy and bring others great joy. So the next thing I'd like to invite you to do in the chat is enter how you practice self-care. What does, quote, "I'm taking care of me" look like in your life? Give you guys a couple of moments here, think about it. And while those self-care practices are coming in, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing those. Together we have put up a really good fight. We have practiced self-care, but now we need to start thinking a little bit more about the future, because fighting and self-care may not be enough to warn off future experiences with performance anxiety. So what do we do last? Well, we have to prepare. Preparation is in direct opposition to anxiety. I'm going to repeat that. Preparation is in direct opposition to anxiety. Preparing is an act of controlling the things that you can control, as well as anticipating the unexpected. And there's a few things we can do better to prepare ourselves for our next high anxiety provoking moment. So the first thing we can do is create coping mechanisms now.
Yeah.
So creating those coping mechanisms now, this involves a couple of steps, and I want you to think about these steps, that way you can apply them later. The first thing to do is make a list of coping mechanisms you currently use. That's things like binge watching TV or going out for a run. Just be sure on this list that you include both the healthy and the unhealthy strategies you tend to revert to. Once you have this list made, scratch out the coping mechanisms that are damaging to yourself or to others. You can keep the neutral ones, like binge watching TV, since they're unlikely to harm anyone. Removing the scratched out mechanisms, copy your new list over to a clean sheet of paper where you can now clearly see outlined what your neutral and positive coping mechanisms are. When you find yourself in a crisis again, refer to this list and let it help you identify what coping mechanisms you can use for your particular situation. Selecting your coping mechanism of choice to meet your current situation is essential. For example, going on a long bike ride before a competition isn't always feasible or reasonable. Instead, consider the coping mechanisms of maybe listening to music or finding a private space to zone out to ease your anxieties. As a coach or a parent, remember when discussing anxiety and anxious moments to always add context. It's important to understand and truly assess where your athlete's head might be during uncertain times. For instance, as a coach, you can recognize the difference between having a novice athlete who might have a harder time understanding the seriousness of a competition, whereas your more experienced athletes totally get it and are starting to get in their own heads about it. Regardless of someone's level of experience or position, though, it's important to recognize that it can be tricky for athletes to see beyond their own lives, their own experience. This is where putting things into context can be really helpful. Bring the conversation back to reality. What are the facts? What are the expectations? What can and what should the athlete control? Once we've identified the healthiest coping mechanisms we have and have added context to the situation to promote realistic and positive responses to performance anxiety, this is where checking for misinformation becomes critical. Fact checking can be complicated when there are 1,000 different voices possibly saying all different things. Think about it. What have you heard that makes you feel the way you or they are? And what do you actually know? Identifying misinformation helps clarify what perceptions we may have that need to be corrected, because maybe we've misunderstood or interpreted a situation purely because we're emotionally charged. Try to find the facts that remind you of what is actually happening around you and how that information can be assessed. The last and probably most important piece we can do is to continue to lead and communicate with empathy. The reality is, we likely will meet someone experiencing performance anxiety who expresses it with emotions like frustration, anger, or sadness. It's easy to give these emotions more power than they deserve. There are statements we can make to empower ourselves and to bring the reality back to the situation to help folks move forward. Statements like this start with empathy. I understand how you feel. They align with the person. I'm on your side. Lastly, once the person is ready, or once you are ready, ask an open ended question to help figure out how to solve the problem. What do you see as your options? What's next? Be sure to ask yourself those questions as well if you're the one experiencing the anxiety. Whew, I don't know about you guys, but that felt like a productive couple of minutes we've just had together. We learned to fight, we practiced a little self care, and we're more prepared for the future ahead. I invite you to continue this conversation at home or on your teams by making a coping mechanism list together and to access information and resources both from True Sport and other reputable sources, and to share with others what you learned here today. This presentation, thanks to Move United, will be made available to all of you, so you'll have access to the above linked resources, as well as the rest of the information in the presentation. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the 2020 Virtual Ski Spectacular and that you continue to increase your mental game with the next couple of presenters. I thank you so much for sharing your time with me today and for being open and honest about how you practice self-care and what things bring you joy in this world. If you have any questions about this or performance anxiety in general, please feel free to shoot me an email. My email address is on the screen and will be included in the presentation as well. And I'll do my best to find an answer. Until next time, keep working to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You may just surprise yourself with what you're capable of accomplishing.
Thank you so much, Audrey. I just love your tips and I love your perspective so much. And we really appreciate you coming here and sharing this with all of us. And like she said, we'll be sharing her presentation with all of you as well after this. But we've got a few more great presenters as well to get to. So I'm going to turn it over next to Reggie and Kep. They're going to introduce themselves a little bit, maybe use their whole names. I don't know. But with that, Reggie and Kep, please feel free to take it over.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Audrey. That was an incredible presentation. I've got a lot of anxiety with Zoom calls, way more comfortable on snow than I am presenting and doing some of these things. So I wish I would have had that about 2 days ago to help me prepare a little bit more for this. My name is Kep. I'm a coach for the U.S. Paralympic team. I'm a developmental coach. I've been a snowboard instructor and coach with the adaptive snowboarding world since 2005. Worked with a lot of incredible organizations, including the Adaptive Sports Center here where I live in Crested Butte, Colorado. I also work with Team Semper Fi, and I've been involved with this for quite a while. I've known Reggie for many years now. We've traveled around with racing and with programming for the last 12, 13 years now. And yeah, we're excited to present some more information to you guys about preparing mentally when you're on snow for racing. And I'll pass it over to Reggie now.
Excuse me. Hey, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Reggie Showers. I'm a member of the amputee community. I've been an amputee for 42 years. I lost both my legs below my knees to a traumatic electrocution accident when I was a kid. And so I use prosthetic legs to walk. I got interested in snowboarding. I actually got talked into it in 2007 by a really good friend of mine who challenged me to take it up and try it. And once I tried it, I loved it. It was a new challenge for me. And what I think I loved the most was being able to go out onto a mountain and connect with like-minded people who are all about sliding down the hill, whether it be on a pair of skis, on a snowboard, or on a monoski. And then I found out about Move United and the adaptive world of snowboarding. And that's where I pretty much found my tribe. I met up with Kep, like he said. I think we met in 2008. And we initially, bonded and became brothers. And we just continue to work really, really hard on how we can help other people become better riders. So we got involved in instruction. I got certified to instruct in 2012. Kep was already certified. He had been teaching, and I learned a great deal from him. And then we started to coach. And one of the things that, and I'm gonna give you a brief background about my racing experience, which applies to snowboard racing and the psychology of snowboard racing. Is I used to race motorcycles, believe it or not. I used to race motorcycles professionally, and I did that for 23 years, I think it was. I was an amputee. I was the only amputee out there racing motorcycles, and I actually did pretty damn good. I won 2 world championships and set a bunch of world records, and that's not to impress you with my personal accomplishments, but it's to impress upon you what it is that we as human beings can accomplish when we are taught to believe in ourselves and our abilities, despite some of the challenges that we may have. Motorcycle racing, or any racing in general, is 90, I would say 90% mental, 10% physical. It's hard to believe with people who are fans or observers. They're in the stands and they sit back and they see all the physical work that goes into, if you're on a snowboard trying to, go over jumps and go around turns in a bank slalom course, or if you're on a motorcycle and you're drag racing down a drag strip, or you're going through a MotoGP course, or in a car, with car racing, you say, man, it's just such a physically demanding sport. And I beg to differ. It is so mental. Your mental preparation is everything if you want to be successful. And your physical preparation does play a part. It's an integral part, but it's a very small part compared to the mental preparation. And I learned that early on, the 6 Ps: proper planning prevents piss poor performance. And part of that proper planning is your mental game. And one of the things I really admired the presentation that Audrey gave, and I took some notes. It may have looked like I was playing on my phone, if for those of you who have been looking at the screen, but I was actually jotting down some really good tidbits that she had dropped. One of the things that we all experience, whether you're in track and field racer, whether you're a snowboard racer or alpine motorcycle racer, one of the things that human beings all experience is fear. And fear can be a game changer. It can take the most qualified, most prepared, most someone who has the most advantages in any type of competition. And once you introduce fear, or that person allows their fear of failure or whatever it may be, once they allow that fear to permeate their situation, and they start to lose focus, then you've got a decided advantage over that competitor. So I went back in 2003. I wrote an article in a local drag racing, a national drag racing publication, and it was called "Erasing Fear and Gaining Control." And I just wanted to read briefly some notes that I found. I had to really dig into my my storage locker and find this, but I just want to share this with you all real quick. Just bear with me. It says, fear is a primal emotion that we use far too often. It can be destructive and debilitating, and it can produce serious physical and emotional problems. Now, fear can be a good thing as long as we use it as a counselor and not a jailer. Okay, so there's 2 types of fear that I want to talk about briefly. The first is chronic fear. If we're not careful, chronic fear may become our everyday companion. Chronic fear, a long-term condition, is associated with big issues. The persistent fear that another terrorist attack will take place, the economy will falter, or you may come down with an incurable illness. Now, a lot of people walk around afraid of many things. Chronic fear slowly and consistently wears on certain people. It eats away at their psyche and can have psychological as well as physiological effects. Now, the second type of fear is acute fear. This is that immediate situational fear. Like pulling up to the gates if you're getting ready to drop down in a course, if you're going snowboarding, if you're going to go into a border cross race or a bank slalom race, you get the blood is pumping and your heart beat is racing. That's acute fear, immediate situational fear, fear of encountering an aggressive adversary, maybe public speaking. Some people are scared of public speaking, and you get that immediate rush. And this type of fear can create instant havoc on our minds and bodies. Intense and immediate fear has a transforming effect. Heart rate can double, like I said. Respiration rate increases, like I said. The digestive system shuts down. Blood flow increases. Muscles around arteries contract. Blood vessels expand. Chemicals are released into the body that will allow a person to withstand more pain, and blood coagulates quicker in anticipation of injury. That's all very interesting stuff that I had found out. I see two problems with regarding intense and immediate fear. First, in this state, like reaction times do not improve. So why do we want to have a quick reaction time? Obviously, with my type of racing, with drag racing, I have a competitor in the other lane, and the quicker that I can react to the starting line flash of the lights of the Christmas tree, that means I can get out in front of that competitor. I react to the flash of the start, and I can get a good start, which gives me an advantage over my competitor, where I can get to the finish line first. So when you have fear, that does not help you to increase your reaction time. Second, brain function drops to lower brain activity. And that's a more primal part of the brain. And given choices, a person will increase the number of bad choices. So to put it simply, you get stupid. And have you guys ever heard the term brain fade? And we as racers, we all have brain fade at one time or another. I remember some of my competitors, they would go out and they'd be number one qualifier. I mean, and they got the fastest motorcycle out there. They put together the best run in qualifying, which put them in a position to race the slowest qualifier in the first round. That's how the ladder is stacked. Number one would race number 16. So you've got a decided advantage. But that quicker guy or girl went out there and just had this immense brain fade right at the start. And the 16th qualifier, the slowest qualifier, actually took out the quickest qualifier. I've seen it happen so many times with brain fade. And that's all because of anxiety and fear that we allow to creep into our preparation. So it should be obvious that two things that a snowboarder or a border cross racer needs are quick reactions and to make smart choices. But yet those are two things that go out the window when fears enters the mind. And you may ask yourself, are racers ever afraid? And if so, what? And the easy answer is yes. They're afraid of losing. It's one of our basic fears, that, losing, poor performance, you look like an idiot, you're embarrassing yourself. If you've got sponsors, you let your sponsors down, you let your team down. So our fear of failure is an arch enemy, and it occurs in beginners and professionals alike. And I want to tell you guys from experience that if everybody has fear, everybody has anxiety, they have a certain level of anxiety. It's okay to have butterflies, but what you do with those butterflies is how you have to make sure your butterflies are all flying in formation, and you can use that fear and that anxiety to your advantage. So how do we eradicate the fear? And I'm going to be really brief here because I know we have other presenters, and I could go on for like an hour with this stuff. But really quickly, how do we eradicate fear? Fear, basically, people are scared of what they don't know, the unknown. Just think about your first day on course. If we were all going to a snowboarder cross race, and you saw the course set up with a bunch of features and jumps and high bank slalom turns, and you see that course from the lift chair and you're like, wow, man, that looks pretty tough, but you don't know what it's going to feel like. You don't know how you're going to perform. So that anxiety and that fear starts to well up. Well, the only way to eradicate the anxiety and the fear is through making the unknown known. How do you make the unknown known? Well, you got to go and get time on your board. You got to ride. For me on motorcycles, it was seat time. I don't know what the motorcycles are going to do at the start. I don't know what the racetrack is going to feel like, what it's going to feel like going 200 miles per hour in a quarter mile. I don't know what it feels like in the beginning. But the more seat time that I got, the more I raced, the more I made mistakes, and the more I was able to get a chance to correct those mistakes. I started to eradicate the unknown, and I made the unknown the known, which actually dispersed the fear. It became like second nature. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, for us as snowboarders, the more we can ride, the more we can get on snow and experience all different types of terrain. And Kep, you can chime in with this. Uneven surfaces, going into the trees, going into the park, going down different hills, and going off some little jumps or different obstacles. All that kind of stuff, it sets you up to condition your body to be prepared to get on the racetrack. Not every mountain has a border cross track set up that you can ride every single day. These tracks are sometimes actually even changed and during the course of a weekend. So, Kep, if you can expand on that a little bit more, and talk about the importance of being on snow to build confidence, to eradicate fear, maybe.
Yeah, just real quick to echo a few things that Reggie was talking about here. The mental side of snowboarding really is the biggest key to prepare physically. Some of the on snow mental preparation that you need to get on a course is being responsible for your own mental space in regards to your teammates and your surroundings. It's taking everything into consideration. Like Reggie was saying, maybe taking a look at the course as you're coming up the lift. We have course inspections that help get you set for practices. We've got video analysis. So many different aspects of covering that course from top to bottom, that so much so that even when you go back to your hotel room or where you're staying at the end of the day, you're going to mentally see that course and visually ride that course over and over again before you go to sleep or before you get onto the course again the next day. There's so many things for the mental game that really prepare you for the physical aspects of snow sports, whether it's snowboarding or alpine racing. And like Reggie also mentioned, mentally being prepared for dealing with varying snow conditions and course conditions. They're always changing. You have to adapt. You have to keep moving forward. One of the other aspects too is the fact that if you're dealing with the Paralympics, we were in Korea for 2018. We had some issues with our gates and our starts. So they had a whole timing system that had failed, and we were on a hold for a while. We were on a full course hold, or if there's anything that happens on course, you could be prepared to go, and they put you on a 10-minute wait. So it's kind of that hurry up and wait aspect is one of the toughest mental things as well. But there's many other things that you can do as an athlete to prepare for all these things, like Reggie had mentioned. Your dry land training, all the stuff that you're doing in the off season to get prepared for your season. It's a ton of work that goes into it with cross training, physically preparing your body to mentally endure a long season. One of the other things as well is if you do experience an injury, and most adaptive athletes ride throughout the season with injuries. I mean, it's just part of the sport. Is you have to train smart, but you also train injured sometimes or compete injured sometimes, and you still have to be mentally 110% committed to that, even though you're physically not able to maybe commit 100%. Yeah, one of the biggest things just to remember is if you prepare your mind and body to get into snow sports, um, you'll be happier with your performance if you've put that time and effort into your training, into your mental preparation, your physical preparation before getting into the gates, before getting into that the spotlight. Let's say the Paralympic Games, which could be the biggest pinnacle of your career. But with that being said, there's a lot that you can do. Um, just remember to try to be the best athlete as you can, and do the best every time you go out on snow, and hopefully everything will work out for you if you've put in that hard work. Um, I'll kick it back to Reggie. Do you have anything else you'd like to add in before we head over to Jane?
No, I think we'll let Jane chime in here. I'm sure she's got a lot of good stuff. I babbled enough. And yes, Jane, I just looked at your message. I did race motorcycles. I was trying to find a photo that I could post real quick, but so go for it.
And Reggie, it's not babbling. It's such good information. And I wish we had more time where we could just sit in a room and talk to you for hours. But it's really, I appreciate the fact that you guys are here and you told us so much already, and you're sharing your information with everyone attending. So if they do have questions, they can reach out. But we do have to get to Jane. You guys are right. So thank you so much for sharing that insight. And Jane, with that, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jane Barber, and my adaptive sports story started probably inspired by the fact that I was a pediatric nurse, and also had a child that suffered some illnesses which caused some trauma. And then I decided to merge my love of nursing and my love of athleticism and start volunteering with the Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center out here in Breckenridge. I loved it, ended up getting certified in COG VI. I'm not sure quite when, but have been working with BOEC now for probably 18 years. I got into yoga personally probably 20 years ago, but it was at a Semper Fi or a Snowfest event. I can't remember which, but I was working with the military at a ski camp in Keystone. And forgive me if I sound a little bit religious, but it's the best way I can describe it. I had a calling from God. I was sitting there after a full day, and I was thinking, God, if I feel this tight and yoga helps me, I wonder about the disabled athlete. I wonder whether I shouldn't be bringing adaptive yoga to this environment. And then it was like, you will be doing that. I had no idea how I would be doing it, but things fell in my path, and I got certified about 4 years ago and taught a while to the point where I felt like I knew enough to learn more. Started getting trained with Mind Body Solutions out of Minneapolis, Matthew Sanford, to become a better practitioner of teaching yoga to those living with trauma, loss, and disability. And last year at Ski Spectacular, a shout out to Julian Moore, who brought yoga into the programming of Ski Spectacular. At that juncture, Matthew Sanford of Mind Body Solutions was contracted. He is the guru in my mind of adaptive yoga. He was brought in to teach yoga at Ski Spec, and I had the great fortune of being one of his assistants. Fast forward this year to Virtual Ski Spectacular, and I am now your yoga instructor. And that is one of the pinnacles of my career, to be able to merge everything together in my checkered life of 64 years and now bring to you what I think will be a great add-on to what you've heard from Audrey and Reggie and Kep. As an adaptive ski instructor and a yoga instructor, my focus will be on the mind-body relationship and how enhancing that relationship will improve athletic performance. I want to speak before I forget it, that there were a couple of things that Audrey and Kep and Reggie said that is a great piggyback that I can really piggyback on. Audrey encouraged all of you to use positive coping mechanisms to use in the downtime, in that 10-minute hold that Kep talked about. Yoga and meditation and breathing are going to be very useful tools for you to use in those periods of time. And the other one is just escaping me. So let's move on. So now I am an alpine skier. I'm not a snowboarder like Reggie is. But when you work with an athletic discipline, I'll use skiing as an example, you focus on different skills. For example, you focus on rotation, on edging, on fore-aft pressure, and foot-to-foot pressure. Yoga's the same way. It actually has 8 different skills. And over the course of today and tomorrow, I'm going to be focusing on 3. 1 is breath, 1 is meditation, and 1 is asana, which is basically the physical poses. The physical poses is what most people think of when they think of yoga, but it's only one of the 8 skills. So let's start with discussing how yoga helps athletic performance. And this is now I'm reminding, I took notes here. Let's talk about breath for starters. Breath calms the mind. Reggie talked a lot about fear and getting that mind fog when fear comes in. Breath helps calm the mind even when your body is active. Breath enhances focus. Again, that came up in Reggie's conversation, where if you're so upregulated with fear, you can't focus on the task ahead of dropping into that race course. Breath taps in to the parasympathetic nervous system. Everything Reggie talked about, and here's my nurse nerd coming in, everything he described, up heart rate, up respiratory rate, lower digestion, that's the sympathetic. That's fight and flight. Now that comes in handy if you're running away from a tiger, and it comes in handy, I'm sure, with getting the game on to drop into that course. But if it's out of control, it gets in your way. The use of breath will help bring that down, will help deregulate you. Breath brings attention to the whole body. There's been a lot of discussion today about upping the mental game. And that's super, super cool. And it's super necessary. And it's super important to do your homework, to be prepared, to look at the race, to all of that stuff that our co-presenters have been talking about. But when it's the time of the race, then's the time to quiet down and to go from your mind, integrate your mind into your body. Breath helps that. Breath also brings vitality, and vitality fuels possibility. Look at the possibility. Look at Reggie, bilateral amputee, that is a motorcycle racer and a Paralympic coach. Breath fuels vitality. Now let's talk about meditation. Meditation also quiets the mind. Meditation helps you come into stillness. Meditation helps you find your strength in the stillness. Kep talked about getting ready for the ski season, cross-training in the off-season, studying the course. Those are all things of strength and will. Now you're up on the top of the hill. You're waiting for your race. Now's the time to meditate and draw in strength through stillness. Another aspect of your strength is in your quiet. Meditation brings you to the present moment. It helps you get rid of, like, what did I not do to be at my best to do this race? It helps you let go should a race be disappointed and say, I'm going to grip and hang on to that disappointment. It helps you let go of that and move forward to the next race. So how do we use breath and meditation as it pertains to snow sport racing? Let's operationalize this a little bit. Let's imagine you're at the top of the course. How might you use breath and meditation to help you stay calm, present, and ready to be at your best? We're now going to get into a little experiential here. So I invite you to sit straight and tall. And I'm going to take you through something that we call softening the organs of perception, all those sensations that let everything from the inside come in. This is a tool that you can use at the top of the race course, maybe when you're sitting in the hall 2 hours before the race course, maybe when you're at a Paralympic game and you've got a 10-minute hold. So let's try this out together and see if it speaks to you. You can either have your eyes open or closed. Soften the skin of your forehead. Soften your temples. Let the backside of your eyes drop down. Soften your jaw. Soften your mouth. Bring your lips a little bit together, but make sure that your teeth are not clenched. Soften your throat. Soften the grip on your lower belly. Let go of those butterflies. Let go of the grip, be it cold or nerves. Soften everything, all organs of perception. Lower your chin to your raised sternum. Open your eyes, bring your head on top of your neck. Let go of your fear and get ready to drop into the race. All right, now that you're hopefully a little bit deregulated from that fear that grips all of us before a race, adding on the cold that you're sitting in, waiting for that race, letting go of the grip, now let's layer on breath. I have a little breathing ball here in front of me. Again, you may have your eyes open or you can have them closed, whatever works for you. And now just to pay attention to your breath. One of the aspects of the mind-body connection is you take your mind and you draw attention inward. And that helps you connect with your body. And somehow it obviously works because we've been doing it for 3,000 years. Pay attention to your breath. Don't force it. Be grateful for your breath. How lucky are we that we breathe, even without trying? Now pay more attention to your exhale. Feel your feet. Find your feet, even if you don't have them. Even if you have no sensation in them. Draw your mind through your entire body to your feet. Notice the breath. Now add intention to your breath. This is where you can help regulate the fear that comes in. Add equal parts. What I mean by that, like this breath ball going out and in. Try and make your inhale and exhale as similar as possible. This is so very helpful because you are now not letting your breath control you. Breathing is the one aspect of the key things that keep us alive that does itself automatically, but you can also control it with intention and attention. Equal parts breath. Use this skill, softening the grip of the jaw by going through softening all the organs of perception. Layer onto that intentional breathing to keep you calm. Those are two skills that you can use before a race that will bring awareness into the whole body to get you ready to drop into gravity. All right, moving on to meditation in a little more in depth. There's several different types of meditation. There's meditations that are guided by a mantra. I noticed in the chat room, one of our participants said something like, he tells himself, I can, or I'm great, or I am. That's an example of a mantra-based meditation. You might consider, if that works for you, if you use that skill, add that mantra to the breath. I going in, can going out. That would be an example of overlaying meditation on breath through mantra. Another way to meditate is through visualization, visualizing that course again and again and again to bring you strength. Another form of meditation is through movement. The asana aspect of yoga is movement and meditation, walking meditation. All of us people that slide on snow, that's probably our favorite form of meditation. But today I'm going to introduce you to guided meditation. In a lot of the ways, softening the organs of perception was kind of like a guided meditation. But here we're going to do another one. This could be particularly useful at the end of a race, but you try it on for size and see what you think. So again, I invite you to sit tall, head over the neck, eyes open or closed, doesn't matter, whatever's comfortable for you. Draw your attention to your feet. Both of them, whether you have them or not. Integrate the body and the mind. Draw your attention to the ankles again. Even if you can't feel them, take your consciousness there and energy will follow. Draw your attention to both your knees. To both your hips. Breathe into them and feel your torso lighten. Draw your attention to both sides of your rib cage. Draw your attention to your shoulders. Your elbows. Your wrists. Draw your attention to your sternum, the space between the chest. Your shoulders. Bring your attention into your wrists and back into your sternum. Draw it back in, that space between the chest. Breathe into them all and feel your whole body lengthen, grow taller. Balance your head over your neck. And just be. Imagine how powerful it is to be able to let go, to tap into your stillness, to tap into the quiet, so that you can find your strength. And so you can fall into that race course through the gate and have the run of your life. That ends my presentation. So happy to present with all of my colleagues. Lily and the team will be providing my email to you should you have any more questions. And if you're interested and intrigued, come do a whole practice with me tomorrow. It's on the schedule. The light and love in me honors the light and love in all of you. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Jane. I know that the adaptive yoga at Ski Spec last year was something that everyone really looked forward to. It's a great way to start and end the day. So we're really missing that now. Thank you for sharing some of this today and the rest of the week as well. And Reg, Kep, Audrey, all of you, thank you for sharing all of your insights today. We are so grateful for your longstanding commitment of Move United and Ski Spectacular, and we truly couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us and being here today and this week. And we do really value your feedback. So if you could please take a few seconds to take the survey that'll pop up when the session ends, and we've also put it in the chat box as well. That would be really fantastic. And you can stay engaged and share your favorite Ski Spec memory or your thoughts on the sessions or the event on social media by using hashtag Ski Spec. We'll be monitoring those and reposting some of our favorites. So again, thank you so much. If you had any questions that weren't answered in the chat, we'll definitely be monitoring those and getting them to the right people and getting you the answers. So again, thank you so much for being here, and look forward to the good rest of the week. Thanks, team.